I'm coming at you live on tape from Sydney, Ohio. And this week's movie is Return to Oz. Now, it is nothing like the original Wizard of Oz. The original Wizard of Oz had songs, it was all happy, it had munchkins. It was pretty much made for little kids. Now, I know adults love it too. I mean, I like the original Wizard of Oz, it's my mom's favorite movie. This movie is darker, it is weirder. And it actually has been criticized for being too dark and weird. And that's why some people don't like it, and that's kind of why I love it, because it is dark and weird. And that's why it was one of me and my older brother's favorite movies as a child, because it was dark and weird. Look, there's a kitty in the shot. That is my co-host Snickers the cat. I don't know if we'll see her more in it later. Um, It is more book accurate. It is based off the books The Land of Oz and Ozmas of Oz by L. Frank Baum. The original Wizard of Oz was not that book accurate, based off the book The Wizard of Oz. It was not that book accurate. This is much more book accurate. It's also based off a play in which the Army of Oz was introduced, and the only thing they took from that play was TikTok, whose catchphrase in the play was pick me up," which TikTok is in this movie, and he says that repeatedly in this movie. And as I said, it is dark and it is weird, and that is why I love it. Now it starts out with Dorothy and Kansas, who they aged down in this movie to make her the same age as she is in the book. She is played by Fariza Balk, who most people call weird to begin with. Personally, I've always loved Fariza Balk. I think she is a wonderful actress who has not been sleeping at night because she is dreaming of Oz. So her aunt and uncle, well, her aunt takes her to this place where they are doing electric healing, and her aunt leaves her there, where they tie her to a bed, which Dorothy disagrees with, and are about to commit electroshock therapy on Dorothy. We even go in the room where they are heating up the electroshock therapy earphones. This is early electroshock therapy before the 1900s. But then lightning strikes and all the power goes out. And this other little girl comes in and frees Dorothy, and the two of them escape into a river. And we don't see don't see where the other little girl goes, but Dorothy gets in this cage thing and ends up in Oz with one of her chickens who isn't laying eggs, and is in the deadly desert where if you touch the sand, you turn to sand, and moves out of the deadly desert by stepping on rocks and gets into the lunch pail tree with ham and cheese sandwiches. Then she finds her old house that landed on a witch, but there are no munchkins in sight. That was due to a Little People strike in 1985, which I just made up. And the yellow brick road is all torn up, leading to the Emerald City, which is also all torn up, and the people there are stone. And then the Wheelers show up, which are people whose hands and feet are wheels, and they terrorize Dorothy. And she uses a key she found in Kansas to go in this room, and that's where we meet TikTok, a mechanical man, who you wind up, and he is the Army of Oz. I don't know if there's more of him in this army, or if he is just the army. We don't know. We only meet him. And he takes care of the Wheelers, and he makes one of the Wheelers take him to Princess Mumby, who supposedly knows where Scarecrow is. And Princess Mumby changes her head. That's right, she changes her head in front of Dorothy and says she's taking Dorothy as a prisoner until she grows up, and then she's going to take Dorothy's head and add it to her head collection. Tick-Tock, unfortunately, has ran down his action winder and is frozen still. But Dorothy meets a new friend up in it's not really in a dungeon, it's up in like an attic. In Jack Pumpkinhead, whose mother built him to scare Princess Mumby, but Princess Mumby brought him to life. Needless to say, he's made of sticks and has a pumpkin head. And Dorothy devises a plan with the powder that brought Jack Pumpkinhead to life. And she goes and they break out and go wind up Tick-Tock and bring a Gump head, which is a green moose, I guess, tie it to a couch, tie palm leaves to each side, put a broom as a tail, before Dorothy wakes up Princess Mumby's original head stealing the powder. Now, I'm not sure how Princess Mumby finds these heads when she doesn't have a head on, but she does. And they get the powder and they bring the Gump couch thing to life, and it flies them out of there. Princess Mumby sends the Wheelers after them, but they lose the Wheelers when they're over the Deadly Desert. The Gump couch plane falls apart when Dorothy wakes up the next morning, when they're going after Jack's head, which fell off when he was trying to get ropes together because the Gump couch plane was already falling apart. And he falls apart, and they all land on the Gnome King's mountain, who took the Scarecrow and destroyed Oz. He destroyed the Emerald City and froze people and took over Oz. Now, the Gnome King is a giant rock. He's a giant rock king. Not like rock and roll, where he plays the drums and plays the guitar and plays all sorts of instruments like Prince. He's actually made of rocks. And the Gnome King brings them in and is like, look, I'll make a deal with you. I turn Scarecrow into an ornament. If you guys can find the ornament in 3 tries apiece, I will let you go. But if you guys can't, there will be consequences. He doesn't tell them the consequences at first, until he sends the Gump in there, which is just his head tied on the couch now. But when the Gump doesn't return, he tells them the Gump is now an ornament. Which Dorothy disagrees, but they really don't have a choice. And so slowly they go in there to find the ornament. And the Gnome King smokes, which is why it says depictions of tobacco use when you load up this movie. Which I don't think he's smoking tobacco. I think he's smoking some type of rock. But I don't know what kind of rock you smoke besides crack. So maybe he's smoking crack. It's not a crack pipe, it's a tobacco pipe. But I suppose a giant rock monster could smoke crack out of a tobacco pipe. Eventually it comes down to Dorothy and Tick-Tock, and Tick-Tock pretends to freeze, so Dorothy can go in there and see what kind of ornament he turns into, but the flash is too big and she doesn't see. Eventually, two of her guesses are used up, and she spins around in a circle and wanders about till she sees a green emerald ornament. And she touches it and says Oz, and Scarecrow comes about. Scarecrow comes back to life. And then her and Scarecrow go about finding other green ornaments and bringing the rest of her friends back. But then Princess Mombi arrives, and Gnome King puts her in her jail cell because Dorothy's figured out the game, and goes and gets revenge on Dorothy, eating the couch, but not the gump, because Dorothy and her friends steal the gump head, and threatening to eat Jack Pumpkinhead. But the chicken inside Jack's head has laid an egg, and the egg goes into the Gnome King. And eggs are poisonous to gnomes, and so kills the Gnome King. Dorothy steals the ruby slippers back from the Gnome King, wishes them all out, and the Emerald City back to its glory, and the people to be okay. And then they all celebrate. But then Dorothy sees someone in the mirror, the girl who she thought had drowned, getting her out of the electroshock therapy building. And she gets her out, and she's introduced as Ozmas, the true Queen of Oz. She's the daughter of the once King of Oz, who was king before the wizard. And Ozmas sends her home, but says if she ever wants to come back, she can come back. And then then Dorothy's uncle finds Dorothy. Well, Toto finds Dorothy, and Dorothy's uncle finds Toto. And Dorothy's uncle actually gets off his fat, lazy ass and starts building their house and their barn and their chicken coop. And that is Return to Oz in a nutshell. It's good. It's weird. Sounds like Kitty just broke something glass. Sounds like my co-host just broke something glass. Never mind that. Her companions are as weird as the enemy she fights, which turned a lot of people off at in the beginning. But it's gained a cult following. And by cult following I mean a group of weirdos who really like this movie like me. I say it's good. I say it's worth watching. It's on Disney Plus. I'm sure it's somewhere else. Go watch it. There's no song for this week because I've been simply overwhelmed with homework. Because I'm in college and I've been simply overwhelmed with homework. Also, I've got this nasty-ass cat scratch on my hand and have been trying not to wear my wrist bracers because I don't want to irritate it. Cat did that on Sunday, and Sunday's normally when I write the songs, and I have to wear wrist bracers to play the keyboard, and yeah. Next week, we're going to do some Tony Todd movies, since Tony Todd just died today. Rest in peace, Tony Todd. So we're going to do some Tony Todd movie next week. And eventually, I'm going to do the 1925 Wizard of Oz because it's a lot weirder than the Wizard of Oz from 1939. So join me next week when we do some Tony Todd movie, whichever one I can find that is streaming for free still after Tony Todd's death.